Hello and welcome to this introduction webinar providing you with information in respect of the UK Diploma in Anti-Money Laundering from the International Compliance Association. My name is Becca Dare. I am Director of ICT. So let's start by just reviewing the agenda. We're going to talk about what the UK Diploma in Anti-Money Laundering is all about. Then we'll look at the workshops, what they entail, the assignments and the exam, and link to that the assessment as a whole. And then we're going to have a look at maybe some ideas about the approaches you would take to studying the qualification. Okay, so in terms of the diploma itself, it involves 4 one-day face-to-face workshops where offered. So it is possible to do the program by distance learning, but generally speaking, you'll have 4 one-day face-to-face workshops. There will be 2 written assignments and a 3 hour, actually it's 3 hours 15 minutes open book examination at the end of the course. The course typically takes 9 months duration from start to finish as well. In terms of the syllabus for the program, the course is broken down into modules and in turn broken down within those modules in units. So there are 6 modules. The first module is about giving you the context and indeed the bigger picture around anti-money laundering. So we look at, what do we actually mean by money laundering? What is the legal definition of money laundering? What are the practical typologies and case studies? How do organised crime groups, corrupt politicians actually work? How do they structure their transactions to conceal their criminal assets? We'll also look at the international context, which is a really fascinating area, looking at how international bodies and agencies such as the United Nations, the Financial Action Task Force, and the European Union shape the approach that we take to anti-money laundering. And also, crucially, not how they shape the law, but how we can actually use the information that these organisations produce in our day jobs. So, for example, we look at the development of risk assessment of different jurisdictions. We look at the latest research on, again, money laundering techniques. Then we'll actually go and look at the legal and regulatory frameworks. So what are the key pieces of law? Both at primary legislation level, obviously the Proceeds of Crime Act, but as well as the money laundering regulations. But we'll talk about what these laws actually mean in practice in context in terms of things like customer due diligence and suspicious activity reporting. In Unit 4, we'll go on to look at the vulnerabilities of specific products and services. So which products pose a high or medium or low risk for money laundering and why? And then obviously what are the appropriate controls we can put in place to mitigate those risks. Module 2 is looking at customer due diligence, a really hot topic at the moment worldwide from regulators. What is customer due diligence and how do we make it meaningful and effective? Because the standard has risen dramatically in the last 3-4 years in terms of regulatory expectations. And if you don't do CDD properly, you expose yourself to a horrendous range of risks. So we'll talk about concepts like unwrapping beneficial ownership, dealing with high net worth individuals, obtaining source of wealth information. We then go on to look at sanctions, a hugely complex and difficult area to comply with. These are the lists that are issued by a range of international and jurisdictional authorities of individuals who are deemed persona non grata and whom we must not provide a financial benefit to. So how do we screen for these individuals? How do we mitigate the risks of, say, dealing with terrorist financing and so forth? The last module, module 4 rather, is looking at the overall risk-based approach to money laundering, how that manifests in terms of systems and controls. What is the risk-based approach to money laundering and how does it work? How do you escalate important, significant issues? And what about exiting relationships which pose an unacceptably high risk to your organisation? We'll explore those issues as well. Module 5 is examining the concepts around governance and the role of senior management. Obviously, all the systems and controls in the world will be severely compromised if senior management doesn't fully engage. We'll talk about the governance around these processes and the importance of the culture of an organisation, as well as training and awareness. And the final module, a really interesting area, is looking at the whole concept of suspicious activity. What constitutes suspicious activity? What are the red flags that you should look for? And how do you get people to identify those red flags? Through automated systems, through systems for staff to report suspicions manually, and how do you evaluate the credibility of those reports? And of course, if you decide to make a suspicious activity report to the Serious Organised Crime Agency, there are a multitude of considerations after the report goes in. What can you say to the customer? How do you continue to monitor or deal with the customer's assets? And then there's the whole aspect of dealing with requests for information from law enforcement, be it formal court orders, production orders and the like, or more informal requests for information. We'll examine best practice in those areas. So, to cover this syllabus, the workshops will take quite a practical focus, and the workshops are extremely engaging, interesting in that you will often have the ability to talk with other practitioners from a range of industry sectors, maybe law enforcement, regulators as well. They're very much focused on group exercises, discussion, as well as examination of key scenarios. They're highly interactive. They're kept reasonably small groups. So they're a fantastic way to enhance the learning and self-study that you'll be doing during the program. The assignments, there are 2 assignments, and they are 2,500 to 3,500 words. We give you lots and lots of support in terms of researching and writing an assignment. We're conscious that many people may not have studied a qualification at this level for years, or indeed ever. So we will give you plenty of support in terms of how to go about writing, researching and referencing an assignment. And it will really deepen your knowledge of the subject area. In terms of planning, we examine the approach to drafting an answer, and we give you advice on how to properly analyse the question, draft out frameworks, and how to structure your answer in a logical, coherent fashion. So this will give you, this slide will give you an example of a recent assignment, and this is not untypical. You can see the question is about the Financial Action Task Force, and as we'll see on the program, this organisation is a key body in terms of anti-money laundering and recently have reviewed their standards. And the question essentially is, critically evaluate the changes made to the FATF recommendations, ensuring you examine the rationale for the changes along with the likely impact. Now, you'll be supported in answering that question during the workshops and in the course material. We'll walk you through and talk about what the key changes are and maybe perhaps analyse what they mean. So, as you can see from this question, this course is designed not to be a rote learning, not to be a rote learning program, but to ensure that you are able to look at these issues from a critical viewpoint and build an argument or reach conclusions based on your own research and reading. We have another section from the assignment here, review the decision in the case of SHA and HSBC and implicate the implications for regulated financial services firms. Now this was a key case last year that revolved around suspicious activity and what we call the consent regime under the Proceeds of Crime Act. We'll examine in the course the practical implications of this, and this is actually a good example of how the questions will explore the practical applications of some of the law and higher level concepts. Okay, the exam itself at the end of the program is 3 hours open book with 15 minutes reading time, during which you're able to make notes on the question paper. essentially you have 2 sections to the exam paper, and you've got to answer 4 questions in total out of 8. The first section is more theoretical essay style questions. Out of 4 you must pick 2. The second section are case study style questions, and again you must pick 2 out of 4. Open book means just that. You can take anything at all written down into the examination. So your own notes, the course materials, your assignments, virtually answer frameworks. The only thing you're not able to take in is electronic media. So here's an example of a fairly typical examination question from a recent exam. And this focuses on the concept of the risk-based approach to anti-money laundering. Has a quote saying that it puts the onus on organisations to identify, assess, mitigate and monitor their money laundering risks, and that it's an ongoing process. And the question is, in respect of this statement, explain and summarise the rationale, benefits and core requirements of a risk-based approach to anti-money laundering. So again, this question will give you the opportunity to use your own experience and knowledge. If you're working in an organisation that has applied a risk-based approach, you will be able to make references to that, albeit you will be not identifying your specific organisation. If you don't work in a regulated firm or have never done so, it's worth mentioning during the program we have the facility to appoint a mentor for you, which would be an experienced practitioner able to provide you with support and advice during your study. Here's another example from the exam. This, however, is from the case study style question. And I won't go through the facts of the case in detail, but you can see from the slide that we have a series of facts about the Olympic Delivery Authority and talking about an individual who is writing to this organisation and he's attempting to commit a fraud. And there's a bank involved in here as well. The scenario unfolds and the question is in 3 parts. What offences, if any, could Alfred be charged with under the Proceeds of Crime Act? B, what obligations was the Olympic Committee under? And how should the bank deal with the request to transfer the funds? So this question will require an application of the law and good practice to a fact-based scenario. And again, in the study materials and the workshops, we will prepare you with the skills and the ammunition to answer a question of this type. So in terms of study requirements, I'm often asked how much time is involved in studying for this program. I think it depends on your experience and your commitment, but I would say typically you're probably talking at 4 to 5 hours a week on average, with peaks and troughs when you're perhaps studying for an exam. So obviously you want to use the course guide and the study handbook and plan your studies thoroughly. And we'll give you advice on this as we go through the course. A key will be making your own notes and reading effectively in a focused way. Skim reading is a very important skill. And remember, as it's open book, you can take anything with you into the exam that's written down. So you can use your own organisation's materials. You can certainly look at the primary law, as well as industry guidance, case studies, journals, and we give you a great deal of further reading and information in addition to the course materials to support your learning. In terms of the overall assessment, it's 50% of the course mark relates to the 2 assignments and 50% to the open book examination at the end of the program. The course can be awarded with a pass, merit or distinction, and the overall pass rate is a 50% pass. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact the International Compliance Association. Those are my contact details personally and the web address for the International Compliance Association. And I look forward to seeing you on future ICA programs. Thank you.